Members, thank you for your attention today, Friday, and all session. I'm tired. This is a very, very challenging issue. You can hear from people on both sides of the aisle that they don't think that this is a perfect bill, and I understand why you're saying that. It's primarily based on, not solely, but it's primarily based on this question of possession. And what I will say is that it's an important discussion for us to be having in 1326, but 1326 is much more than possession. This is a strong, collaborative, comprehensive, and thoughtful approach to the fentanyl crisis. And it comes at it from both sides. I wish this was the perfect bill. I wish we had $1 billion to put towards voluntary treatment. I wish that we could change the world in one stroke of a pen, with one subject title, with one bill number. I wish that we hadn't relied on a system that wasn't investing in mental and behavioral health for the last 20 years. But that's where we are. And when we enter in this conversation about possession, you get essentially both sides saying it has to be my way or it has to be my way. And I am telling you, at this moment, at this time, with how deadly fentanyl is, it cannot be one or the other. We have to go right down the middle of this aisle because this crisis is killing people every single day. So I'm going to talk about what's in the bill, because there's a lot in here that's going to save lives, and no one talks about it. This bill expands the number of organizations that can get opioid antagonists. Naloxone saves lives. This bill, because of the ask of law enforcement, protects persons who administer opioid antagonists from civil liability. This will encourage the use of naloxone and detection tests, and that will save lives. This bill allocates $20 million to buy opioid antagonists to be distributed around the state. This will save lives. This bill allocates CDPHE $300,000 to purchase synthetic opioid testing strips and will provide them to more eligible entities across the state, because that will save lives when people are educated and know what is in their drugs. We are not going to stop recreational drug use in this building. We're not going to do it. So we have to make sure that we arm and we prepare and we educate Coloradans to better understand the crisis that we know too well. And one way of doing that is establishing the ongoing statewide prevention and education campaign to inform the public about fentanyl. We have done that in this state before. We did it with methamphetamine between 2006 and 2010, and that saved lives. And now we can do the same. We know that that works, and that is in this bill. There's also a community education grant program to make sure that it's not just the statewide campaign, that community organizations have the resources to educate their communities, because we know it's not just in Denver, it's touching every single part of this state to make sure that their communities understand the deadliness of fentanyl. It's going to expand the current harm reduction grant program to allow for more resources to be extended to law enforcement, community mental health centers, local public health agencies, and other local diversion efforts to help keep people out of jail, to move them into recovery, and that is going to save lives. It allocates $6 million additional dollars to harm reduction grants. This will save lives. It will expand MAT to require that MAT jail recipients receive doses of MAT upon release and receive referral for continued medication. That will save lives. This bill allocates $3 million more to jails to increase MAT for people who are in custody. And let me just take a moment and thank Representative Herod, Representative Lynch, Representative Sanders, all of those who have come together on this piece of legislation to better inform this bill as it's made its way through the process, because there are realities on the ground that are reflected in the bill that's before us. Now, we can't just go to the harm reduction side to save lives, because Colorado statutes are not prepared for the fentanyl crisis. The cut points that are in law right now for possession with intent to distribute do not reflect the deadliness of fentanyl. From 0 to 14 grams is a DF3. 14 grams, that's 140 pills. That's too much fentanyl. For the DF2, it's 14 grams to 225 grams. That's half a pound of fentanyl. That's too much fentanyl. And anything over that is the DF1. This bill realigns those cut points. That's the most important issue that I've been working with district attorneys across this state on, because they need to make sure that they can charge the dealers who are profiting off of the poison, that they can make sure that they can charge them with higher classes of felonies, with higher penalties, and this bill does that. Right now, in Colorado statute, you have reckless endangerment and you have extreme indifference. That is the two ends of the spectrum. For the families who came to testify, who I've met with, whose hands I've shook, who every time I hear their stories I choke up, thinking of my own kids, this bill puts in place a drug felony 1 for distribution leading to death. Because right now there is no tool to go after the people who are killing Coloradans, that are killing kids, and they're destroying families. And that tool is in this bill, along with an amendment that we put on the floor to make sure there's an investigation fund established so that there are resources that go to breaking up high-level cartel activity and to investigate the deaths of these kiddos, so no family comes to this legislature ever again to say there weren't the resources, no one followed up, we have the text messages, no one heard us. That is in this bill. We know that fentanyl is coming across our borders, coming into the state. This bill increases the penalty for importation of fentanyl. This bill is very serious when it comes to importing any amount of fentanyl, and that is going to save lives. We also know that the deadly mixture that's being created in the blue pills, where too much fentanyl is being pressed into the pills, is leading to some of the overdoses and the fact that one pill can kill. This bill increases the penalty if you have a pill press and you are making these deadly pills in your basement, in your residence, wherever you may be, because we take that seriously. We need to make sure that we are holding these dealers of poison accountable for the lives that they are taking here in Colorado. This bill is balanced. I know we are stuck on this possession piece, and with all due respect to each one of you, not one of you introduced a possession bill and brought it up to my desk to introduce. So you can beat me up as much as you want. You can say one is too high, it needs to be 0. Well, okay, we're trying to get a comprehensive bill across the finish line to help save lives. That, in my opinion, is not a silver bullet. Whether or not it's 1 or it's 0 is not going to save exponentially more lives, or it would have been in the title of the bill, and it would have been the only thing in the bill that we introduced. But guess what? It wasn't even in the bill that we introduced, because the people that want to save lives came to me and asked for all these other tools that I just outlined for you, and I understand where we are. I understand how this process works. I know that maybe we had to dig into this conversation, and let me tell you, dig in, I sure did. For 3 weeks, I have spent just obsessing about possession, trying to get it right, trying not to ruin anyone's life, trying to not make sure that a felony is hanging over someone's head as they try to move forward with school and jobs and the rest of their life, but making sure that we get these pills off the streets.
Mr. Speaker, you have 52 seconds left.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. And that compromise of 1 will get pills off the street. Thank you to all the members that have worked so hard, making sure that that felony is not DOC eligible, making sure that the records are sealed, making sure that it's the most compassionate way that we can approach this we possibly can. Thank you to all of you. This is a compromise. We have to get this bill passed. The last thing I will say, the greatest failure of all is the failure to act when action is needed, and action is desperately needed. I know it's not perfect, but please support House Bill 1326.